Greetings. I'm Michael Bankershot Writer, and today we're talking about, well, the Kids Winter Wonderland and the new event ship. As you can see, here's the quick summary of this. New event ship is actually the Fek'Ihri Vok'Tar Temporal Science Vessel, and I'll cover that in more detail later. I've reminded that to get hold of the Temporal Science Vessel, you'll be required to do one of 6 events. I'll cover one of those in detail later, or at least enough to help out. You also get hold of some other items during this event, and I will point out that Twinkling Lights is something might be covering is something worth looking at, especially on the budget end, and it only applies to this Christmas and any future Christmas event ships for when I use it in budget, because but everything else is more ground based, which is not useful for a ship build. So, but other than you get some nice items and a Moopsy hoodie. Yeah, sadly I don't have enough credit for the Moopsy hoodie and the magical or any other jumper. So yeah, let's move on to the ship. Okay, the Fek'Ihri Vok'Tar Temporal Science Vessel is, as you can see here, is the annual event ship. So here's a quick rundown of the stats. It's tier 6. When you get it, you get a Commander Science with Temporal Ops seating, Lieutenant Commander Universal, Lieutenant Commander Science, Lieutenant Tac of Intel, and Enhanced Science Engineering. And you got 3 tactical consoles, 3 engineering consoles, and 5 science, and some other stuff. And you get universal consoles called the iGrapher, and the ship comes with secondary deflector with engine analysis and subsea targeting. And you get the molecular reconstruction starship mechanic, which is actually something most all commander temporal seating ships get. So, and we also get the science vessel starship microchip with the big ticket trait being big ship starship trait being the hypnotic mind wave, and some decent sized vessel admiralty. So the console power is basically a universal console power. When activated, you won't open a subscreen vortex which pulls the pile of enemies into the silent damage for 45 seconds, and basically ship base, and effectively stalls most ships around, basically repairs the ship's subsystems, flight speed, and various other stuff, and then creates a bit of a explosion of psionic damage. In space, psionic damage is very rare. The console itself increases psionic damage, which means that, and also fire damage, which are both relatively rare ship items for things to do damage wise in space. And also reduce universal console recharge times, which is one of the better things you can do for what many people are thinking about getting this ship focus. Even a few seconds out of some of these universal console cooldowns is well worth it. Of course, you can yank this console out of put it in any slot on your ship, so it's all very nice. So, starship trap hit no more microwave. Once every 15 seconds, you will confuse enemies surrounding you in a 5 kilometer radius for a few seconds, and you gain 20% all damage bonus against confused and plated enemies. So so that can do a lot of damage as well. Now, one of the because I haven't got the ship yet, we need to compare it to other ships that's in the game. So, Static Lines Reddit has got a very nice topic. User has called Fleffel has managed to created a ship list which has got all tier 6 ship lists in it, and this is so here it is. Well, it does look like it's out of date, but it's not. Actually, not. It's actually company. The data that's is being used is up to the Ethereum Salvation ship, which released on which the stats came out on the 9th of December, and today's the 12th. So yes, that information is good. So as you can see here, there's a big pile of information here. There's a lot of various ships, and I'm not going to go too much detail about this, but you can see lots of information on all these ships. I mean, everything you need to know about a ship is probably on this table. Now, I've done some digging around, and we managed to find not one but three different science vessels that have got themselves close to the actual ship in question. Now I've actually, because the Verne Temporal science vessel from 2018 up to about a couple of years ago was considered one of the best lockbox items for science builds, to the point where the actual people who were going for it, when it came out and looked in the C store, quite a lot of people considered buying it, including myself. So that's why I can show you a similar ship to the Fek'Ihri Vok'Tar Temporal science vessel without actually having the same thing. And the only difference is I've made some minor changes to it, to the build, which I could, because outside of the hull and shields and some mobility, the things, some other stuff, it's very nice. It's not too but it's not too far away from the original, the other ship, because it's and have you noticed that all the stats are identical, from the bridge officers to the weapons. I mean, well, not identical, but I mean, I could easily transfer that Lieutenant Universal into a tactical bridge officer, and that's something I've not been able to do. Of course, the traits and the consoles have also been changed. But really, let's go inside game and see what I've come up with. At least come up with when I'm in a relatively quick hurry, because whilst I've got a ship, you don't. Times you buy one of these ships from the C store or from the lockbox, you don't need to have you don't need to spend money on that. You don't have to. You don't do budget builds on them, because you have that far ahead. So, see you in game. Welcome to Q's Winter Wonderland, and, well, the man himself is down there. Well, I'm up here just because it's a lot quieter and with at the moment. We are going to have a... So, let's actually cover the ship in question. This is the shimmer, which is for the purpose of this. For the purpose of what I'm going to be covering, is going to be close enough to what for this preview. Close enough that because it has the exact same stuff and it's very similar seating. So, what I recommend: picking up the Temporal Defense Initiative set, all 4 pieces, which is the deflector, impulse engine, warp core, and shield. Next up, I'd pick up at least 2 pieces of the, and possibly the 3rd piece of the omnidirectional chronometric calculation set, which comes from the time and tide. And I also would recommend, because of the type of ship it is, I could also recommend one option is to go with cutting beam and a standard omni beam. And if you want to pick up some other stuff, you can find a cheaper omni beam on the exchange. Phases usually is at the time of recording was about about 1.5 million, so relatively cheap. As I said, but you can also craft. Willing to craft it in the R&D section if you get up to level 16, and also you find the correct bridge officer. Technically, the stuff down here is not something I recommend, but there is down here is not the ideal thing of suggestion I'd use, but this is actually a pretty decent option I've considered. But basically, whilst these are fleet consoles, these are I fill up the accounts, all the science slots with stuff that improves control expertise and drain expertise, as far as because this actually do a lot of damage. I deliberately picked up a flow regulator just so as there was an old phrase that's EPS is DPS. And I just picked up a plasma infusion console, which is a standard plasma weapon, but I could change that to a beams weapon if you so wish, because there is a reason for doing that if you want to take advantage of the of a trait that's available in the Wonderland store. And I forgot, and this is the 2nd piece of the chromatic capacitor, which is actually a decent science damage ship, which just exotic particle generator, and I think I should have got some of that in here. So yeah, as I said, with weapons are more somewhat standard for one ship in this case, but I also recommend picking up the deteriorating secondary deflectors. This is probably one of the higher advantage ones, but this doesn't. And for stations, again, I've not done. This is not a full blown budget build. I've got I've not even got. I've got to do some changes here, but as I said, this is roughly as much as I could do with this universal is going to be the changeable one. So and I've deliberately made this universal beat act like the Lieutenant Tactical in the Fek'Ihri ship. Not exactly the best thing I could do, but this was basically something that something I realised looking at the stats and realised I haven't had loaded for a few weeks, but here it is. It's been Max Sharp right on reporting for Max Holodeck. See you guys next time.